Members, we have formed a quorum. It's time to get started. This is a meeting of the Subcommittee on Banking Capital Amendment Rules 2013 and Banking Disclosure Amendment Rules 2013. We need to elect a chairman. Nominations? Mr. Christopher Chung. I nominate Mr. Leung-sing. Do you accept it? Any seconder? Okay. Any other nomination? No? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wong. I don't think we need a deputy chairman, so shall we invite the officials to join us? First of all, let me welcome the following people coming to the meeting on Banking Capital Amendment Rules 2013 and Banking Disclosure Amendment Rules 2013. I'd like to welcome all members who have signed up, apart from Mr. Chung Gok-ban, who is unable to attend today. Let me declare my interest. I'm a member of a listed bank, so it's an institution subject to the proposed regulation in the rules. So I'll give the floor to the administration for introduction and then invite members to raise questions. Is it Mr. Liu? Thank you, Chairman. We are here to discuss two pieces of subsidiary legislation made by the Monetary Authority, and they are Banking Disclosure Amendment Rules 2013 and Banking Capital Amendment Rules 2013. I believe members have already got copies of the two sets of rules for your information and scrutiny. I would like to provide some background information, and then I'll invite colleagues from the Hong Kong MA to go into details of the subsidiary legislation. In February last year, this Council enacted the Banking Amendment Ordinance, setting out the legal framework for implementation in Hong Kong, the relevant capital disclosure and liquidity standards promulgated by Basel III. And this is done by the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision in order to enhance the resilience of banks and the banking system, addresses weakness observed in the global financial crisis. Last year, we handled the Banking Capital Amendment Rules 2012, and you were the chairman. On that occasion, we discussed the amendments to the capital requirement of authorized institutes, and also to enhance transparency, quality of capital base of banks. We'll also revise the criteria for instruments to be recognized as regulatory capital. The new rules have been working well, and today we are talking about another 2 sets of rules. They are consequential to the amendment ordinance passed last year, and that is we want to make corresponding and consequential amendments to the banking disclosure rules to enhance the comparability of banks' disclosure in respect of the capital base. And we, in November and December, the Basel Committee also announced new rules concerning the risk related assets and also the counterparty risk requirements. We have taken on board all these in our amended rules. These are technical in nature, so I would like to defer to experts from the Hong Kong MA for a more detailed introduction. Okay. Basel III introduces new capital requirements, and since the coming into operation of the new capital rules on the 1st of January this year, all the AIs in Hong Kong have been able to comply with the new requirements. As Mr. Liu has said, this is the result of the enactment of the Banking Amendment Ordinance 2012. And this time we want to introduce consequential and corresponding changes so as to comply with the disclosure requirements under Basel III by the middle of June, by the middle of the year, i.e. June this year. The requirements are introduced to introduce the latest Basel III technical requirements concerning counterparty risks. All these requirements are in line with the minimum requirement of the Basel Committee. They will have minimal impact on our banks. This is part of implementing the first phase of Basel III. From the first draft to the finalization of the proposed rules, we have conducted many rounds of consultation. The industry generally support the rules, and they have made some points about the details. We have taken them on board and incorporated them in the final proposed rules. The rules would enhance our capital transparency, and so that the calculation of assets of our banks would be in line with Basel standards. Therefore, we urge the subcommittee to support the enactment of the 2 sets of new rules. All right, thank you. Do members want to raise questions? Mr. Wong Ting Guang. Thank you, Chairman. I have a question for the Hong Kong MA regarding the rules. In your introduction, you said that they are basically agreeable. They have no problems with these rules. What about implementation difficulties, as they told you? Are there adverse comments? Are there worries and negative comments? When we consulted them, there were 2 phases. When we consulted them on the 2 sets of rules, there was a consultation exercise with banks in terms of the policy. And when we drafted the rules, we again consulted banks in Hong Kong, and they raised some issues about the details, some other points for clarification, and we responded in a few rounds to take on board their comments and address their questions. All these have been done. What about small and medium-sized banks in Hong Kong? there are going to be amendments to the capital requirement. Are they expecting to encounter difficulties? Well, I can give some background information here. We have conducted a test recently covering all locally registered AIs, big and small, and also financial companies and restricted licensed banks. The findings tell us that they have no problem in complying the new Basel III capital requirements. As for the two sets of rules, one is about disclosure. There is no implication on capital for banks. It's about disclosure.
The second, about banking capital amendment, the technical amendments. It's more relevant to big banks because it deals with counterparty capital requirement. It's called capital adjustment requirement because bigger banks conduct a lot of over-the-counter derivative business. I'm aware in paragraph 11, in 2011, the capital adequacy ratio was very high, was higher than 8% international standards. We were 15.8%. So from 2011 till now, has there been any change? Are we higher, lower, or not changed? It's more or less the same. Just now I referred to, this was calculated on the old basis. So we're now calculating on the new Basel III requirements, and we have three minimum requirements. We have the general capital adequacy, and we have a grade 1 and overall capital adequacy. So all three far exceed the minimum standards. So my understanding is that the two amendments on disclosure, these are technical amendments. Even for the capital adequacy amendment, there shouldn't be any problem with execution, right? Okay. The subsidiary legislation is to make our legislation in line with international practice, so it shouldn't have a big impact on local banks because they have sufficient capital adequacy ratios. And I'm also aware that small banks are concerned that if other jurisdictions are not implementing, but Hong Kong is adapting first, will there be any competitive issues? But there hasn't been any special response so far. So these two amendments of the subsidiary legislation, we have already consulted the Bank Advisory Committee, the Deposit Taking Company Advisory Committee, the Hong Kong Association of Banks, and Deposit Taking Companies Association. Of course, we also have consulted the Financial Secretary. So procedure-wise, we've already done a big portion of the work. So aside from legislators' concerns, could the administration also elaborate a bit on local arrangements aside from converging with international best practice on Basel III. So if possible, could you supplement? And then these are subsidiary legislation. Should we we can divide it into the local section, and which part you can also divide it into the international part. Yes, thank you, Chairman, for your proposal. We can confirm that the two subsidiary legislation are related to disclosure and capital adequacy under Basel III. And in paragraph 11 of the paper, we have already listed. So we don't have any local content because the disclosure standards are in compliance with Basel III requirements. And last November and December, Basel had already issued the technical documents. And we're just adopting international practice so that we are in line with global practice. So our draft or content shouldn't be significantly different from the last occasion. All the relevant content is related to Basel III disclosure and capital adequacy. It's the same. Okay, that's the salient feature. Everything is in line with Basel III. There's no localization amendment. So from this perspective, I think we understand the subsidiary legislation amendment. So will the administration propose how we should scrutinize this amendment? Since the amendments are in line with Basel III, so when we deal with the document, we have adopted the content and we have not set the new standards. So after drafting this, we have taken the subsidiary legislation draft and submitted it to the Banking Advisory Committee, the Deposit Taking Companies Advisory Committee, and Hong Kong Association of Banks and Deposit Taking Companies Association. They have gone through it clause by clause and have provided us with some feedback. So I think on this occasion, we have adopted Basel III quite perfectly, and I think it's very technical. The legal advisor has done the amended portions and cut and paste them for our reference. So depending on your views, it depends whether we it would be up to you to decide whether we need clause by clause scrutiny. Otherwise, you can consider it completed. We also welcome any questions you might have. I had already written to the administration and they have replied. Had a telephone follow-up, and there's nothing more that needs our attention. Well, if we haven't received any special views, then we haven't also heard from local banks. There is nothing that needs our attention. Then there has been no amendment. the Legco Secretariat and legal advisor have examined it clause by clause on our behalf, and since it's also a total compliance with Basel III and the banks, our authorized institutes have supported it, then we won't go do clause by clause scrutiny. Let's hear any other views. Well, it will only take effect on 30th of June. There's still a few months. Now, even though the government has done consultation, but scrutiny of bills is the Legco's responsibility. Well, since we haven't heard any response, but we could still elicit some views. We can ask for opinions. We can announce it on the internet. We don't need to invite them to speak because it's very technical. But let's see whether they have any written response. Otherwise, we can conclude the work. It's just we only need to follow up. We have not received anything of note. The Secretary can write to these institutes and confirm that they agree. If they have any written submission, we can respond in writing. We can write to these affected institutes and also include an internet disclosure. Yes, the Secretary, please take note. Any other views? If not, do we have any other follow-up from the government? If not, then we'll proceed as decided just now. If there's no special view, I'll have it in the queue of our council meeting. Let's refer to page 4 of Members' Brief, paragraph 6, page 4 of Members' Brief for the legislative timetable. This is our timetable for the bill scrutiny. 15th of May. So if we don't have any special views, we can wait for the written submissions and internet response, and we will not convene another meeting. Then on 3rd of May, we have a report. Thank you, Chairman. The arrangement. 15th of May is the deadline for scrutiny. If we don't extend, then by 3rd of May we need to report to the House Committee. That is this Friday. And on 8th of May, that will be the deadline for giving notice of amendment. But if we are to write to the institutions plus internet invitation of opinion, then it might be rather tight. Well, let's extend it a little bit to 24th of May. Then we might need to extend. We can extend to 5th of June. Then by 8th of May or 15th of May, we can have a resolution to extend, and we can report to the House Committee on 24th of May. Mr. Wong Ding Gong. Well, we've seen the amendment. It's rather technical, and since the preparatory work has been handled by the monetary authority and the administration, they've consulted the banks and deposit-taking companies. So even though in the past our practice in scrutiny of bills would be to consult with the affected industry, but because of time, we're all busy. We're busy with the budget. So if we were to extend this bill, I wonder whether you can seek an extension on the 8th of May. If we defer to 15th of May, then a simple bill would be postponed indefinitely. So if Mr. Sin doesn't find any big problem, I don't think we need to go through we don't need to make these extensions. Let's hear from members. It will take effect on 30th of June. So if we extend the bill, it's not quite meaningful. So does it mean that we're not respecting procedure? Not necessarily, because as the administration said, the MA and have already consulted the industry. But if we were to set up a bills committee, we can go through the motions. But if there's nothing of special, if there's nothing of note, we can report to the House Committee such that we can pass these simple legislations through simple measures. Would you agree with this arrangement?
因為黃定光議員提呢個亦都係簡單嘅方式可以做得到嘅。善議
So do we agree with Mr. Wong Ting Guang in adopting the summary approach? Well, I agree with Mr. Wong Ting Guang, but we should discharge our duty as legislators. Yes, there is a filibustering process. We may hinder normal procedure, but I don't think we should dispense with the right procedure because of this. It's better to be on the safe side. Any difficulty on the part of the Secretariat? If I may, Chairman, I would like to supplement. We are willing to tie in with the handling of the rules by the subcommittee. Actually, a month before Gazzetto, we gave the rules to the 4 organizations in the banking industry. Hong Kong Association of Banks and so forth are familiar with the rules we are now looking at. So if you seek their views, I believe that it will not take a lot of time for them to reply. That would help us wrapping up things here. So they don't need a lot of time because they have already seen the rules. Yes, I believe they can respond rather quickly. Well, that's helpful because of the preparation work. I think we can move ahead with efficiency, but let's comply with all the necessary procedures. So if an extension will not hinder the implementation, we should seek an extension from the House Committee. Anything else from Mr. Singh? All right. If there are no further comments, we'll follow the due procedure. And I understand from the administration that this is not going to affect implementation, and there will be sufficient time for the industry to respond. Anything from you, Mr. Leung? I want the Secretariat to confirm one thing. If we seek an extension, say on the 5th of June, we do this in a council meeting. And if there is a budget debate going on, we will get to the top of the agenda on that day, don't we? Well, I'll say something and then our legal advisor can help us. Well, this is the order. Members' motions should come first. If the budget debate is still going on, and on the 8th of May, we submit a notice to extend the scrutiny period, we have to wait until the budget debate is over, and then we'll discuss government motions, and then our motion as a member's motion. In that case, Mr. Chairman, if you move an extension motion, it could well be that the matter cannot be considered, the motion cannot be considered before the 15th of May, and then the subsidiary legislation will come into force. Because as I understand it, it's a 4+3 time frame. If there's no amendment and no repealing of the rules, there's no need to go back to the council meeting. We want to seek an extension, and we can do it on the 15th of May, either the 8th of May or the 15th of May. But can we pass the motion by the 8th of May or 15th of May? If it's not yet our turn by that time, then there's no amendment. All right, we do our part. If by the 8th of May and the 15th of May, and still your motion to extend the period is not yet considered, the implementation of the two sets of rules will not be affected. So let's do our part and see what happens. Can that be done? No, there's no problem on our part. All right, because these are subsidiary legislation. Let's just do our part. All right, if it's agreed by the administration, we'll proceed as agreed. Anything else? Okay, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you for coming. Yes? We'll wait for feedback, if any, from the industry. Otherwise, there's no need to have another meeting. Am I right? Well, I'm going to move a motion on the 8th of May, and that's for the purpose of waiting for feedback from the industry. Yes. If there's no feedback, or the feedback is positive, then there's no need to have another meeting. That's correct. Thank you.